So the platform Gab, that one's left standing still, unlike Parler and Gab. Gab is coming out with their own phone.
I think Gab is left standing because they're not hosting through any kind of service.
Right. I think they've already been deplatformed, but they haven't been removed like Parler was.
Well, Gab's not on. Gab has their own web hosting stuff, correct? They don't go through Amazon or some of the others, which I think has protected them quite a bit.
Yeah, independence is power. You provide your own supplies and you can stay up on the internet a little bit longer, it looks like.
Yeah.
But if they do come out with their own phone, that means they can host their own apps. They can provide a new platform that isn't part of the juggernaut of technocracy.
Yeah. What roadblocks do you think would be in their way?
Copyright laws. I'm sure once they try to come out with a technology, whether or not they are copying from somebody else, I bet you they just get sued just to get sued.
Well, and here's a question. Let's say Gab comes out with their own phone. Would that phone be so you're strictly on Gab with it, or could you get, some of the other, apps and, Facebook and Twitter, or would it just be specifically for Gab?
My thought process would be if I'm Facebook and I want to destroy the Gab phone, I just wouldn't allow them legally to host my app. Facebook still corners the market with all that social media stuff. So if they say, no, you can't host a Facebook app on your Gab phone, that would be a big blow of the marketplace to the new Gab phone.
That's true. It would. So, that's the thing. Right now, Facebook is the top of the line. Parler got taken down. And, of course, Gab could host Parler. But then would I like to see something set up to where it's just this echo chamber kind of group stuff,
You mean like everybody thinks the same and it's just kind of boring?
Yeah, not just that, but I don't want to see people driven into I don't want to see people further driving themselves to the edges. All right, James is coming on.
Yes.
All right. Hey, James, how's it going?
Hey, guys, I'm good.
All right.
So Microsoft almost tried to deplatform us tonight, but here we are. We got James. Toast to you, brother.
So how's things been going since last we talked?
Everything's been going good. Well, since last we talked, give me one moment. Let me post the did you send the link?
I'll send it right now.
Okay, sorry.
All right. There it is.
All right.
So things have been going good since last you talked?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm just...
Yeah.
We got to do a lot of sharing anyway, don't we?
Already did.
Oh, you're just on top of it.
Already did while you chatted about the Gab phone. I was gabbing the share button. So while yep, we can hear you. All right. So things have been going good. I mean, you've still been pretty active, haven't you?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, there's been a couple of things that have happened that that aren't too good. in my favor, I guess. There's been a lot of defamation and fighting within the Patriot movement in Salt Lake City, and just unnecessary drama, but we're pushing through, I guess. But a lot of the talk right now is about my brother John, what he's doing in the Capitol, and his involvement, the 233 Antifa members that actually instigated the riot there. I was bombarded with, like, as you could assume, like a bunch of different patriots sending me pictures and videos of John like bashing the window of the Capitol with like a riot shield and stuff like that. So, you know, like I've been on the phone with the FBI, with the Metropolitan Police, just trying to figure out why my brother was there. So yeah.
Was he wearing a Trump hat?
He was wearing like one of those ones you buy at like a truck stop. Like it's like the camo one. He was wearing a Trump hat, and then the person next to him that was besides the woman that was shot was wearing like a Trump flag and a Trump hat too. So no, it was very real. Like everybody's kind of chalking out to like conspiracy theories. But there's 233 confirmed Antifa members that were in the front of that. And they actually, during Trump's speech, they actually, what's the word? They were already there 30 minutes before Trump ended his speech where he was. So yeah, like it was set up. The cops let them in, and then the Patriots kind of followed them because they thought it was like there was already a Storm the Capitol Facebook group that had over like 100,000 like members. There's a Parler group as well, and they thought that was the group that was going to go in and storm the Capitol, so they followed. And then you saw the videos that were posted by different Patriots trying to stop, like, you know, Antifa from breaking into the Capitol, and you know, it just happened. And honestly, I think it was something set up to invalidate Trump even more, kind of sway the certification votes, and then you know, a plan for his second impeachment that went through today.
Well, it is interesting because they did start raiding the Capitol building just as the Republicans started their objecting to the Electoral College votes. The different states started objecting. So they did. Yeah, it did shut that down.
Go ahead.
It did shut down the objections. It did shut down the, you know, any kind of argument that they would have had.
Yeah, and then when they reconvened, a lot of them said that after the events of today, I cannot morally eject the results of this election. So there's a lot of them that actually turned what they were going to say, or they had announced that they were going to say. So I do think it was planned. Doesn't really take somebody that's smart to see that. You know, I have friends on the Democratic side that are moderates that look at it and they're like, that was planned. Like, it just, this is one of the most secure buildings in our country next to the White House. And a bunch of people were able to get in unvetted, unsearched. Like, there's so many things that could have happened. Like, somebody could have walked in there with like a bomb, like blew himself up. Like, that building is so secure that there's no Capitol Police. Trump had asked for extra security. He had sent out several messages beforehand asking for peaceful protesting or, you know, representing, you know, MAGA, and they were all denied. And then it was finally approved after they were in the Capitol. And that was only to kind of make it so they could detain certain members of the Patriot groups that are coming out. My brother was detained in front of his hotel, and he said that he was like a journalist and a photographer. He interviewed with Anderson Cooper, and they let him go. They didn't even really ask him any like follow-up questions. And then I had a couple of Black conservative friends, including an influencer that was actually like arrested, charged with federal crimes, and all they did was walk into the building. They didn't even break anything. So yeah, there's a lot of weird things that are going on right now.
What do you think? Well, are there any next I mean, if law enforcement is forcing charges on who they find to be conservative and then releasing anyone who looks like they may be suspect in it, it sounds like, I mean, what's the argument then? Do you take it into the courts and ask the government to judge itself liable on this?
The government is not going to judge itself. I have a couple other people that were there, and they had sent in videos to the FBI, like damning videos. Antifa, there's a couple of them, but this was actually Antifa. Like, they're all up there handing out Trump hats. This was like 50 minutes before Trump's speech ended, and they were handing out Trump hats. They're handing out the metal bars, and they were telling them the plan, when to meet and go up. There's a group that left from Black Lives Matter Plaza to the Capitol, and they sent that into the FBI. The FBI got like a crap ton of videos and pictures. I sent in a lot about my brother. Many members of Utah sent in a lot about John because of his radicalism and like his history of being an Antifa leader, the shooting that happened in Provo, etc. And the FBI just kind of passed it off. You know, like, in reality, if he was a conservative who had a rally that a shot was fired at, you know, like, he would have been put in jail. But what I personally believe is that Antifa, they don't really side with any party, but right now they're favoring the Democratic Party because they have a strong hate for Trump because they think he's a dictator. That's my personal belief. I don't think there's going to be any formal charges with Antifa. The evidence is overwhelming. It's very apparent. It's very obvious. But right now it just looks like a bunch of patriots and political right-leaning influencers are being charged with inciting violence. Influencers that weren't even there. They're being charged with inciting violence because they mentioned storming the Capitol like 2 or 3 days before the event happened. So, yeah.
I'm wondering, well, it sounds like law enforcement, the federal law enforcement, and that is obviously they've chosen a side.
Not only law enforcement, but the military has also put out a letter today with a bunch of generals, Johnny Hancock's on it, stating, hey, we're going to be siding with the communists. So,
well, they've chosen a side, so that makes me wonder.
It kind of does make you wonder, and what it also set up, and this is why I see it, and anybody, you don't have to be a conspiracy theory this isn't you can't look at this as if it's a conspiracy theory. We had barricades being moved on the south side of the Capitol, officers waving people into the steps. The woman broke in, a shot was fired. They tried like taking the camera away from my brother because he had footage of her being shot and everything, and he didn't sacrifice it. You know, people got in front of him and he got away with it. But what happened afterwards, the aftermath is almost immediate. Like the day after, I think like there's over like 3 million plus accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter that were taken off. It gave them an excuse to separate not only Trump but other conservative leaders, both political influencers and former and current politicians from Twitter and Facebook platforms that or shadow banning them so they couldn't reach their following or their supporters. A lot of Black conservative influencers are being silenced because I don't know if you knew this, but like during President Trump's this past campaign that he ran, Black conservative influencers like Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, David Harris Jr., they were going into communities, they're going into colleges. They're the reason why Trump had 45% of the African American vote, and it terrifies the left. So they're shadow banning them. Candace Owens was demonetized. Brandon Tatum, they're working on demonetizing him. Same with David Harris Jr. It's an absolute attack on the right, and they have justification for it. So all the Capitol was justification to silence Trump supporters or, patriots. You have Republicans and you have your patriots. So they're silencing patriots. They tried doing that to my page and they tried doing that to me, but I have actual. He's an intern for Facebook. I'm not going to say his name, but my page is like it's a political civil rights activist type thing, but right leaning. So they can't really take it down. I threatened to sue for like it's discrimination because it's for minority rights and American equality and stuff like that. So I'm able to keep mine up and not get shadow banned, but other groups like Latinos for Trump, stuff like that, they were absolutely tainted. The walkaway campaign was like a bunch of inspirational messages. They didn't let you post violent things on there or conspiracy theories, and they were taken down. Brandon Straka came out with a statement about that. So it was just justification to take away our First Amendment rights that we are supposed to have on Facebook or on social media platforms. So that's what I see it. It's very obvious. I know you guys see that too. But it's going to get worse from here, depending on how the inauguration goes down.
Well, I think the larger issue here is if law enforcement is in on it, half the Republican Party is in on it. Obviously, all the Democrats are in on it. They're pushing all these charges, even though we've had incidents of AOC coming out preaching stuff. A couple days later, an ICE facility is assaulted. We have what's that retarded lady from LA that looks like a goblin? Maxine Waters. She comes out and says stuff, and then someone from the cabinet is surrounded at a restaurant, and then you have Bernie Sanders comes out and says stuff, and then someone goes down and shoots at all the Republicans at a softball game. There's never any censure on any of that. So it sounds like what this sounds like is, just in my humble opinion, is a dictatorial takeover. That's what this feels like.
It feels like a Reichstag moment. Kind of like when they set the fire to the Reichstag just to make an excuse for whatnot.
It does. It feels like a dictatorial takeover. Now, it's forever been known that the right wing doesn't know how to wield power, that they just lose it. The left...
Or work together.
Well, yeah. And the left is hyper focused on power, and they're consolidating right now. So it almost sounds like they're pinning us into a corner where only extreme actions are the only thing that is going to be the only avenue left if they keep going in this direction.
No, there's a lot of talk about succession and forming a new patriot party, which I don't really think is going to work for a number of reasons. But you're right; it's kind of trending into like another like civil war or civil conflict where one side, even though percentage-wise they're smaller, there's a lot less of them than there are of patriots or Republicans. But again, the 2% of the country is controlling the country's narrative. And we saw that during Obama's administration. And then Trump came in, he completely dismantled it. And it became about like American unification, job growth, opportunity zones in Black communities, stuff like that, like bringing everybody up to the same level of opportunity to achieve the American dream. And the Democrats don't want that. Or at least the radical left doesn't want that. They want us to depend off the government, obviously, to look to them for our progression, look to them for our sustainability. So that's what they didn't like about Trump, is that Trump was actually making America independent. There was taking away a lot of the money that they were getting from like private interest groups, like China, the oil fields, and Trump was making us independent. So he was making us back to what America was, and now they're trying to completely rehaul or overhaul it and go back to the way it was when Obama was in office, and then build off of that. So you are right; it is a complete dictatorial, or almost a complete, like, we're moving towards like a dictatorial takeover, but they're trying to erase all other or all other beliefs or political views other than left values. So like under Obama's administration, literally, if you did not believe that a woman should be using your bathroom, you could lose your job. Under Trump, he provided protections for us to not have to accept that. He provided a protection for divorced fathers to be able to have a say on whether or not their ex-wife was able to change their child's gender. And they didn't like that because another belief was coming out, and the silent majority got rallied over the summer because of Black Lives Matter, and they got scared. So this is the only thing that they can do to maintain power. Republicans are starting to fall into the coffers of China, and we're seeing that all over. Like solid Republicans, like Reagan type Republicans, are becoming rhinos. Like we had Crenshaw. He's stepping out against Trump. He is stepping out and agreeing with the Democrats. He knows full well that Trump did not incite violence at the Capitol, and he's still going with it. So
I've always felt Crenshaw.
It's gonna come to the people.
I've always felt.
As you said.
I've always felt Crenshaw was
little soft.
A wolf's in sheep clothing.
Well, he's in the Navy. You know what they say in the Navy? You got to try it at least once to ensure you don't like it, right?
No, what I think is Crenshaw came in and he would speak these flowery words, but then again, he always wanted more war. Trump didn't appear to be about more war, and I think Crenshaw just lied in wait. Crenshaw is part of the neocon establishment, part of democracy spread through the barrel of a rifle establishment. And so I'm not trying to say anything bad about Crenshaw, but if you're looking at Crenshaw from the point of view, my appreciation for Trump, I did like his economic ideas. I hate his spending though. But I like that he didn't get us involved in any new wars. That's the first time that's happened in my lifetime.
And you think he was trying to put us into a war, Crenshaw?
Yeah, Crenshaw. Just listen to him talk. He was a hawk on that. But yeah, I feel like this is a consolidation, and I don't think binarily, so I haven't been a Republican since I was in my early 30s. I walked away from parties altogether a long time ago, and because it's they argued about tiny issues on the outskirts and never about anything real. They would argue about a few percentage points on taxes. They would argue about abortion or no abortion. They would argue about, little things like that. But, things that, when it really matters, like the government being involved in your Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, illegal search and seizure, civil asset forfeiture. They were both on down the line all for that. So I walked away from both of them.
I don't even see the Republicans being that strong on the Second Amendment these days, to be honest with you.
Every anti-gun law has come out of Republicans. Except, you got to go back to the Federal Firearms Act to find the last Democrat one. Obama put a gun law in. You know what he did? He made it so it was legal for you to carry a firearm on federal forest areas. So Obama's only gun law was giving more rights to gun ownership.
So the reason why, and I've had a couple of conversations with different people that are complaining and are saying, like, how do we get here? And it's because the silent majority stayed silent, and they expected their politicians, like they claim that they don't want like more government control. Like they want less government. But the silent majority was the silent majority because they sat and they voted and they depended on their representatives or their president to do the work for them. And when they actually activated during the Black Lives Matter, when I came out and everything with Eric and all these other people in Utah came out, it's almost as if, because we haven't been working with each other as the radical left does, they're like a well-oiled machine. We come out and there's so much infighting. There's Q, the conspiracy group, has kind of radicalized a lot of the Patriot movement, a lot of the Republicans, and almost has taken away validness from like what we believe. So we're being perceived right now as a bunch of unorganized radicals by the media, especially after what happened at the Capitol, even though that was instigated by Antifa and it was planned. Republicans and the silent majority, which are now the loud majority, they're all mad because they think that the country should be in a certain way because they, were loud for 6 months when the left was loud for, the past 8 years. And again, I'm going to go back to Obama era. You literally, if you were a conservative, if you thought other than Obama, you could lose your job. You could lose. You could be kicked. It wasn't talked about, but you could be kicked off of Facebook. You could go to the principal's office if you didn't believe in like the massive LGBT stuff that they're pushing out. Like we're gonna go back to that, as you said, but in a bigger way, because right now we're not able to really portray our actual beliefs on social media, and even if they don't ban you, they turn the algorithms against you, so you can't be shared. Like for instance, I got like a warning and a restrictions put on my account last week, and I saw my post go from like 400 to 500 to 600 likes to 300 shares to like maybe 100 likes and 100, 200 shares. And I would ask people who I'd seen liking my stuff if they saw my posts, and a lot of them would be like, we thought you disappeared. They weren't seeing my posts anymore. So I was actually shadow banned. The algorithm's working against me. So we're seeing that, and it's going to be getting a lot worse. Biden and Kamala are already saying that they're going to announce like executive orders to attack like the Second Amendment.
What's that? HB
put restrictions on the AR-15, as you probably know.
That's HB 160, right? Is that what it is? HB 160, House Bill 160.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're gonna try to dive into that a little bit tomorrow night as well.
Can you give me a teaser?
Well, it's what it's going to be is you have to get a license to not just to buy a firearm, but to buy ammunition.
Okay, they've been trying to push that for quite some time.
It makes
so they can kind of monitor how much ammunition you have, how much you can have. They can deny your application. Go ahead. Sorry.
It makes me wonder if these Republican Supreme Court justices will show up to the party if that happens.
They haven't showed up to the party yet.
That's a good point.
So,
I didn't have a lot of faith in him from the start. I honestly, I didn't. I don't. I'll be honest. I believe that. I believe secession needs to be seriously looked at. I know that there's and I hate the name of this, but the Texas nationalist movement is getting a lot of traction. And I know it sounds like a Nazi name, but it just means they want to make Texas a nation. And that's all it is. And they have nothing to do with the Nazi logo. They just want to make Texas a nation, and it's a long-standing, not a party but a movement. It's been around for
for a while.
For what, 30 years now?
It was a joke like 3 years ago. Like, everybody's like, Texas wants to be their own nation, and now it's like going viral.
Yeah,
almost viral.
I don't blame them.
It's written into their constitution. That's why Texas is written in their constitution as a standalone republic that's joined in with these United States. And I think Texas has forgotten that. And let's face it, we've handed our children over to government schools. So how can we expect? I mean, I was educated in a government school, and then I learned how to read when I left school and joined the fucking army. But yeah, no, I think I honestly, when I first saw that rushing and all that, I was like, this seems fishy.
Yeah, it's just not the way of the Patriots.
Like, that was released like almost immediately. People were on lives and like they opened the barricades for the Antifa members to go through. Antifa was like waiting half a block down the road from the barricades. And then when Trump hit the 30-minute mark, they started walking up, and my brother John was at the front of that. He was right next to, I forgot her name, the woman that was shot. He was right next to her when she got shot, and he encouraged her to go through the window first. So, and it was in the video. He was saying it in his video, like, you go first, you go first, you go first. And she got shot. And it's kind of funny how, like, almost every, the last event, the last major event that John had, somebody got shot, and then this one, because he actually helped organize this event on Twitter under the tag name, the Jayden Alexander, or the Jayden Xander, and another person got shot at this event. So you just see that, and again, it's just, as I said before, it's set up. Like there's no other way to look at it. Like 24 hours after it happened, there was a documentary that went up on Hulu about it, storming like the assault on the Capitol or something like that. Like they're pushing it down, they're using it to as push patriots off of social media and to kick the president off of Twitter and Facebook. So it was a very strategic move, and I think it was planned like months in advance.
It's kind of so obvious. It just makes me feel like the American population is incredibly soft-bellied, and they're just taking it.
Yeah, they are.
It's disgusting. I don't know how other way to say it, but
the other question is, what can we do? I mean, if the technocracy have flexed their muscles this week, they've shown that they can shut down email lists. So let's say that us as this show, or where our domain is hosted through Google or wherever we host it through, that they can go in there and erase our domain and our email lists, and just make shit up. They've got the lawyers. I mean, look at what happened to Parler. Not only did Parler get kicked off of Amazon web hosting, Apple dropped them, Google dropped them, the for their apps, and their lawyers quit all on the same day.
Yeah, it's so strategically
they opened the
sound.
Same day, and
I mean, all at midnight, all at not just the same day, all at the same minute.
And it wasn't because they're favoring conservatives. It's just that they didn't want to adopt the same censoring rules that Facebook and Amazon has.
But the scary part is their lawyers quit.
Yeah.
Their lawyers
paid off.
Their lawyers just breached out. Sue us.
Money talks.
Yeah. So what that shows me, and then right now the left is accumulating power. But I mean, I'll put it out right now. I'm sorry. I went to the Rod and Gun Club last week and lost all my guns. I shouldn't have taken them on that boat, but they're all at the bottom of whatever lake I was at last week.
You and your fishing habits.
God dang, I got to quit taking all my guns. Yeah, but I've got a fine wrist rocket now. It's homemade. 2 sticks, look like Dennis the Menace shit. I don't know. It just seems like we're getting forced into a sketchy time, like we're getting collapsed in on no avenues of maneuver.
So there is an avenue of maneuver, something that Republicans and moderates haven't really done for the past couple of decades. and that's just to do what the left does. Become a well-oiled machine. Be involved in your local government. A lot of like the roads that are paved in your neighborhoods, the decision of whether to put a railroad or tracks in the middle of your neighborhood, the food that your kids eat at school, what they learn, their curriculums is all controlled by your state government. I mean, there's federal in there, but most of the laws that you abide by are state laws. So pay attention to your state government. You still have control there. We still have amazing mayors and governors that abide by the U.S. Constitution.
But what
another thing is to stay active, stay as activists. Don't go back to being silent. The Black community right now, I know that this is something that's like a touchy subject, but the Black community, it's not really being talked about. It's why they're attacking Black conservatives so much is because in Chicago right now, 32% of the Black community in Chicago, just in that city, voted Republican.
I know, that's
never
insane.
been that high. The Black community in Chicago voted Republican. It's never been that high, and it scares the crap out of them because they're looking towards their next local elections.
Well,
what's going to happen there?
It's not just that, but Trump did bring an explosion of an economy into those Black neighborhoods.
And they recognized it because they're not stupid.
He freed them up. He said,
we don't need welfare.
He said, we're going to strip the regulations out of there so you don't have to compete with that. He made them a zone where they didn't have to compete with the federal government to start a business.
Exactly. Opportunity zones.
And that's it. That's, and that's where I guess the problem with, we've got to fight through all of our state control areas are in large cities, which is dominantly Democrat. I mean, every large city is dominantly Democrat. How do we break into there? How do we show these people who live in, we'll talk about Utah, how do we show the people that live in downtown Salt Lake that the Democrat Party does not provide what they say they provide? That you need to stand on your own 2 feet. You need to be robust in your own life, manage your own life. Don't rely on the government to deal with that, and pull them away from, because that's the Democrat Party message.
A lot of Democrats lie to themselves when they talk about their party. I mean, I try to have a conversation with a Democrat on Facebook in the Tooele area, and they're telling me, you got to relax. They're not coming for your guns.
You show them the proof, and they're like, that's not true.
Yeah, I know, right? That's not real socialism.
Or they say, oh, that's just a license you've got to get. That's not them coming for your guns. That's not them trying to add restrictions. Oh, well, then I can only buy, 20 rounds, have 20 rounds on my premise at any given time. Well, that's not them coming for your guns. They're trying to restrict the ability of ammo and whatever, It's all.
So you asked the question of how do we break into Democratic minds? Well, this is kind of it's something that's worked for me. If you want to try using it, it's fine. But you have to acknowledge that in America, we do have social policies. Not saying that we're a socialist government, but we do have social policies, like the U.S. military. You go into the military, you do your job, they provide for your life, and you literally depend off of the military. It's a social policy. We have Medicare, Social Security, things like that. And we have to, it's not really talked about, but there needs to be like a form of checks and balances to balance out social and capitalist policies. Because you have too much capitalism, then you have inflation. If you have too many social policies, then you have too much government control. So we have to find a way to balance those. And a lot of liberals do not believe that conservatives even acknowledge social policies. They keep pointing to Switzerland. They keep pointing to Sweden, Canada, and how it works over there. But we're the U.S. and we have to find a way to balance good social policies and capitalist social policies as well, or capitalist policies as well. So when I have conversations with Democrats, about that. I acknowledge and I say, like, yeah, we do have social policies, but the thing is that we can never be a socialist government. And Trump doesn't say that because he's scared of communists. He's using his business sense and saying there's no way in hell that America could be a total socialist country. It's not going to happen. But Trump has passed social policies. That's the thing that people don't really realize is that they think of social policies as full-blown socialism when it's actually things that there's been social policies that have been working for our government for the past couple of decades. And I've actually broken through to some Democrats like that, and we've had some constructive conversation. But again, you just gotta to just keep being active in your political community. I have a couple of speaking engagements at several colleges here in Utah and in Idaho, where I'm going up with a panel of Black conservatives, and then there's going to be 4 Black conservatives and 4 white and Black Democrats, and we're going to debate in front of an audience of liberals and conservative students, mostly liberal students in colleges. So we're going to be getting into education systems like that. There's a couple of different initiatives to go in and to revitalize Black history, because right now they only teach about like slavery, civil rights, and then now they're oppressed again. They don't teach about the Harlem Renaissance, the 12 Black Wall Streets, anything like that. So we're going to go back in there and empower Black Americans to know that Black America was great until radical ideology from the left rose and took that away from them. So there's some things that are happening, but it's not going to be easy. It would have been a lot easier to do under Trump, but the fight still goes. It still goes on.
Well, James, I'm gonna say you should definitely let us know when these events are going to occur so we can put an ad out on our show and say, hey, check this guy out.
Especially if they're videotaped. Sure. We'll share it right to our page. We'll share it and get it out. Mm-hmm. Another thing, I mean, not to gripe about Trump, but why did he put all those fucking swamp monsters in around him? Why was Bolton anywhere near his administration? You know, he shot himself in the foot with that. He should have Bolton. First of all, he should have had Bolton put on an airplane and delivered to Guantanamo day one. Day one, Bolton should have been in Guantanamo. That fucking crooked gray mustache bastard. But you know, and then at the very end, he starts putting in good guys. The guy he put over the Pentagon, a month ago? Finally, a guy that has a clear path on how to get us out of these dog shit wars that are going to bankrupt us. But before that, we get Bolton.
I think he didn't even know what he was stepping into when he actually won the presidency. It's like
I don't think
figured it out halfway.
I don't think he planned on winning. I mean, he should have brought some of the. This would have been a ninja move. He should have brought Tulsi Gabbard in, gave her a cabinet position somewhere.
Awesome.
He should have brought her in. He should have brought Yang in and gave him a cabinet position.
Yang, yeah.
Bring those guys in, but no. Instead, it's just one after the other. Bolton. I'm gonna get some people mad, but he brought Mattis in. Granted, Mattis, decent general. Mattis is a fucking warmonger. And then when he says, all right, we're going to pull out of Syria, and then Mattis quits and goes on the stump to say how bad Trump is because he wants to pull out of Syria. You know, why do you bring guys like that in?
It's the people he has advising him, really. A lot of people, Republicans and Democrats, don't realize that every president has a team of advisors that advises them in every single thing that they do that affects the country. So it's people that he put his trust into. Again, he wasn't a career politician, and he went off of recommendations. So that's what you have to kind of realize is that he's not just a one-man show. Like, there's a lot of his advisors, generals, different people that are telling him what to do before he does it.
Well, I mean, I could go back. One, he should have backed Flynn from the start. He should have backed Flynn right from the start. He let Flynn hang and dangle in the wind for 3 years, lose all his money, all his retirement, all of everything, and then Flynn proves that, well, the FBI's dog shit. Well, let's speak about the FBI. You as a black man should know COINTELPRO was started up to maintain government control over what they consider an outside movement. COINTELPRO started by the FBI to subvert any kind of black movement. It wasn't just the Black Panthers or the Nation of Islam, but they went after Martin Luther King. We're going to be celebrating his birthday on Monday, but they went after him. They tried blackmailing him. And then, you know, this is for me, my anarchist mind, this is the bright spot. Is now the Republicans can finally see that the CIA and the FBI do not work for us. They don't. They haven't ever. The CIA is born out of the OSS, and the OSS was strictly, what was it, like all the college-educated bankers that wanted to go play G.I. Joe for a year during World War II.
Yeah, so just talking about the FBI interference in the black community, it's something that a lot of people don't really understand. And when you have imbalance with anything, if you have a scale, and if you have, like, if you're like one weight off of equality with the other side, your scale is going to be uneven. So right now in our country, the black community in democratic held cities are disproportionately less likely to achieve the full or even experience the full American dream without a lot of work compared to me in Utah, achieving the American dream. And I just had to apply for a job, or I had to, go and, go to college. And, black people in democratic held cities, they have to really, really work for that, especially with their school systems. And the problem is that the government, or the democratic side, they don't want the black community having leaders that they don't control. Black Lives Matter, and the pastors, the different community leaders they have are all controlled by the Democratic Party in some way, shape, or form. Because if the black community were ever to unite, not with each other, but with the rest of America, and not be, referred to as the ghettos and Black America, and they were just Americans and we were all equal, the Democrats would no longer have, or the Socialist Party, the radical left, would no longer have the working class to convince that the current society or the current government, the capitalism or the republic has failed them, and they need socialism to take its place. We saw that for the past 6 months with Black Lives Matter, where all these black people were screaming for a form of government that historically kills and puts the working class into work camps. They were advocating and screaming in the streets for that form of government, socialism. So the second that we fix that imbalance, we're going to find that the Democratic Party and the Socialist Party, they're going to go absolutely haywire like they are right now with the black conservative influencers, and they're going to lose their prominence. America will become truly equal, and it's really easy. It's not even something like Black Lives Matter, like we have to do all these things. You bring positive black history, Harlem Renaissance, the Black Wall Streets, black progression, black innovation. Like the Harlem Renaissance, we're the most innovative ethnicity in the country at that time when it came to forming the arts, forming thought. We essentially created rock and roll with jazz. So, we put that history back into our schools. We tell them that Black America is great until a radical ideology rose to take that away from us. And we tell them we are equal. We're not Black America, but we are Americans. And then the black community starts looking at their Democratic leaders and saying, why am I living like this when in Texas, their wage is this, their mortgage is this, they're not redlined, they can afford to move out of their state if they want to. Their property tax isn't $20,000 for a year for a 3-bedroom home in the slums of Chicago. When they start waking up and seeing that, you're going to see a lot of things happen in the Democratic Party. You're going to see the Democratic Party rear their ugly head of white supremacy. It's already happening against black conservatives. I was called every name in the book, House Negro, coon, like straight up N-word by Democrats because I didn't believe in what they believed. And it was very famously like Lex Scott posted on Black Lives Matter calling me a house enter. And, you know, they don't, if you don't believe in democratic beliefs, you're literally the N-word to them. So,
Well,
you know, that's how it's going right now. So,
they're
again,
using
if we fix the imbalance, and if we join as Americans, as we did during the MAGA movement, with all communities, the Black, Latino, poly, etc., and we continue that momentum, the Democrats are going to be running around with their tails between their legs.
well, I don't even want to just pin it on blacks. I would say anyone in those downtrodden inner cities, whether you're black, white, Latino, I would say Asian, but for some reason Asians avoided that. They're tools for the Democrat Party to either use as posters or to use as frontline military. That's all they are. I mean, look at it. Look at the Black Lives Matter. All their movements are. You've got young black individuals who have had shit opportunities thrown at them, and white trust fund kids. That's the movement. You don't have people who are out building a life and building success in there. You have trust fund kids on one side who can afford to go play because daddy still pays for their MacBook, and then you have the young inner city people who honestly are kind of brainwashed by their situation.
Are you talking about the imbalance in the membership or the diversity in the membership in Black Lives Matter?
Yeah.
In Utah, I counted a total of 9 black members in the Salt Lake City Black Lives Matter chapters. The rest of them were a bunch of white people telling me that I didn't understand my blackness because I didn't vote for Obama and I supported Trump.
You don't understand your struggle. Don't you know your struggle?
They're like, don't you know that you're discriminated against and everything like that? And I'm like, I have 2 white parents. Oh, that's it. And I'm like, okay, so when a cop pulls me over and gives me a warning like he does to white people, he doesn't ask me the color of my parents, you know? So like, no, seriously, like they would try to force down my throat. A bunch of white people or their white allies would try to tell me that they were there to help me. And, you know, I was confused and I was supporting a KKK member and all this different stuff. And, you know, I never experienced that from the conservatives. Like I tested it. I was in New York and I walked up to like a couple of people and I asked them like why they weren't going to vote for Biden. They're wearing like red hats and like they talked to me about it. They said like how amazing Trump was and how amazing we were for the community. They didn't disparage me. They didn't call me any names. And I ended it saying that I was a Trump supporter. I just wanted to know. But if you have that conversation with a Black Lives Matter member, they start it with you're confused. They'll spit at you. It's crazy. But then they say they're not racist.
So they say to you, we're here to help you, so shut up and get in the back.
Exactly. Get in the back of the bus so we can drive. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
There's an element of crazy to that.
Oh.
It's reverse racism. It honestly is. It's to say that I have white privilege and I have to atone for my sins, so let me take the lead while I fight for your rights that aren't taken away from you.
Yeah.
You know?
Because I can afford to, because I'm a trust fund kid. Daddy pays all my bills, you know.
Guilty.
Yeah.
They call that virtue signaling.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, it's absolutely crazy. And one of the things that I'm working on with a couple of other strong Black Republicans across America actually is called the American Minority Revival Initiative. And it literally, everything I explained, we're literally just bringing back the fullness of Black history, the fullness of Latino history, of Polynesian history, all ethnicities, and bringing them into one American history and introducing that curriculum to schools. We have a couple of schools in Utah that I'm not going to name because I can't, that we're going to be going into their high schools and middle schools and introducing this curriculum. It's still teaches the things that, about Black America that Democrats want them to know, but also gives them the fullness of everything in one history, and that is American history. Because Black history is American history. The Civil Rights Movement is an American historical movement. So like people don't really see that. They see that as Black history or Black History Month, which I believe is the most racist thing that you could do to the Black community. Is to segregate a month for them so they could acknowledge how white people fought for them. So so white people can acknowledge Black people. It further divides our country. But yeah, it's just all history, Black history, and the fullness of Black history should be looked at as American histories by white people, by Hispanics, by Mexicans. It's all American history, and we have to stop separating it. We got to remove the word Black from history. It should just be American history. And that's what we're doing. We're actually getting some very positive feedback, and we're going to start here in Utah, get some proof of concepts down, and then probably move out to Idaho, Arizona, and then start going to the more liberal counties or states. So, yeah.
I think that's outstanding.
It's very admirable.
I would, and speaking of the Harlem Renaissance, I've studied a little bit of that. That's I mean, I'm wondering if there's a way you could get an exhibit of art, even if it's just the visual art. Get an exhibit of it. Hell, don't even have the race of artists, but have a I don't know if multicultural's the word for it.
Yeah, like a multicultural, like American.
Let's face it, right now.
Everybody says multicultural festival, but it should be like American multicultural festival.
Yeah, but like, right now we're all one culture. You come to America, we're a weird culture that doesn't have one single root. We have many roots. We're heck, mix it and splash it all together in a collage.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's got to be a way to fight that. But back to the point. I'm I don't know, concerned. I think that there is going to be some drastic maneuvers made by not just the Democrats, but made by governments, by our government over the next little while. I believe
it's already started.
Yeah,
and it literally happened like overnight after the Capitol. So if they can do something that fast, or like Twitter and Facebook can do something that fast, they literally it's ridiculous on how much control they have over. The president literally could not get out addresses to his followers because his Facebook and Twitter was taken down. They have the power to silence the president, and now he's on CloutHub. Nobody's really on CloutHub, but now he has to go on CloutHub to communicate with his supporters, because Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and virtually every social media site has silenced him. Like the power for a company or companies to have that power to take away the voice from the leader of the free world should concern everybody, and it doesn't just stop there. All right, there's too many companies that are controlling, what our children are raised seeing. Disney is one of them. They're becoming like a huge monopoly in our country, and it's kind of, if you go on like Disney Plus or anything like that, they're integrating, like, I don't have any problem with LGBT, but they're integrating like gay kids and children TV shows kissing, and or gay parents and stuff like that, and they're indoctrinating our kids when our kids don't really need to see that. They don't need to be thinking about their sexuality until they've developed cognitive thinking skills. Their beliefs should not be centered off their parents that they're going to pick their sexuality. So like it's happening everywhere, and as you said, it's going to be happening a lot more drastically because the Democrats in the past 4 years have lost a lot of influence over this country. So yeah.
Well, maybe I listened to a show the other day. It was a guy named Curtis Yarvin was chatting with Thaddeus Russell, and he mentioned how strong the left got under Trump because they had the fervor, because, Cheeto Hitler got in charge. So they had the fervor to build up. And maybe this will be the driver that causes, I don't want to say Republicans. I think Republicans need to go away. I don't know if conservatives are the right word. I would like to think that people who want to live a free life, a life free of dictates from government, dictates from technocrats, dictates from oligarchs, I would like to think that would cause a fervor in them, for them to start saying, no, we're not playing this game anymore. We're going to, as we host this on Facebook, but they start saying, we're going to pull away from Facebook. We're going to find alternatives, make alternatives. That's ideal. We need to make alternatives. We need to design that.
Yeah. No, it's true. And we need to support those alternatives and get them on different servers. MeWe's growing so fast that they're crashing every day.
Yeah, I'm on MeWe.
The second they hit that 2-3 million mark, they're gonna be faced with the same demands of censorship guidelines. If they don't follow, they're gonna be taken off. If they do follow those, the conservatives are gonna leave that platform and go to a different one. So we need somebody. I don't know if Trump's already working on this, but we need somebody to actually make their own server, so we can't be, our rights won't be infringed, basically.
That's another question.
Yeah.
Would it be ideal for conservatives to say, you know what, I'm going to pose my objections to what's going on. I'm going to pose my opinion in a manner that is not breaching any standards of etiquette.
I don't think that would work. I mean, they want to ban you. They're going to find a way to ban you.
But make them reach. Make them justify, hey, I banned him because he said, I don't feel that abortion is proper or correct. I feel that abortion is life. Make them stand up in court and show that piece of paper, versus make them stand up in court and say, well, we should drag this person out in the street and do all these vile things to him.
There's better ways to do things, and leaving the government out of it is definitely one of the better ways that I can think of.
I agree.
Yeah, when government is free, the people are enslaved.
That's a good point.
When the government is enslaved, the people are free. And
howitzers for everyone. You can choose. You can have 105 or 155. Depends on how many windows you want to shatter up and down your street.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of good points are brought up, but again, it's just we have to continue to kind of to unify and to stop infighting within the Patriot movement and the defamation. And I don't really know any Democratic or liberal political commentators that even come close to Candace Owens's prominence. We need to start lifting up our influencers. We need to start lifting up other voices and leaders and allowing them to lead narratives against the left and supporting these people, not just when we have momentum with Trump, but all the way through. So it's going to be very crucial that it's going to come up to the people. Our politicians are going to do the best that they can, but the fight is going to be in the streets. It's going to be in the board meetings. It's going to be in our schools, and we just have to show up. That's literally it. We just have to show up, and we have to stay loud, and that's all you have to do. It's going to be a fight. A lot of people are kind of let down that we're going to go back into leftist ideology across the nation for a little bit, but you have to realize is that we're still 80 million strong, and we still outnumber them, and our voices are louder. We have to begin to challenge their narrative. Hopefully not using the same defamation tactics that were used against Trump, but just continuing to challenge the narrative and grow our base. So the next presidential run, there's going to be so much unification and support for one another that we're going to be able to fully rally behind the political candidate that represents us. I think the next presidential run in 2024 is going to be more historic than this one, if we do this right and if we keep our voices loud.
Who do you think that we have that the Republicans are going to put forward?
What?
Who do you think that we have that the Republicans are going to put forward to run? Any thoughts on that?
Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard. There's a lot. There's a lot. I know Candace Owens. She had talked about the integrity of Republicans across the nation, the integrity of the Republicans that were, that were running for office with Trump, and she was saying that right now it's going to come to somebody like Trump, but more on a public service level. And she kept hinting that she was going to run. I know that Trump's children have hinted that they're going to run. I believe it has to be somebody that puts America first in their mind and lives and breathes it. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw on the ticket Candace Owens and Ivanka Trump. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw David Harris Jr. and Terrence Williams.
Dude, if we had two female candidates up there running, what are they going to do? I mean, first of all, they're going to have to justify all their vile rhetoric they use around females at the time. You know what? They'll double down. They'll put up like a trans and a furry or something. But anyways, either way, not to sound like, but they'll just have to. I think that would be.
You're getting excited just thinking about it.
Well, I mean, I've been eyeballing the Libertarian Party lately, and they've got some motions going on in there. I'm excited to see what they run next, because the Libertarian Party is getting back to its radical roots. No more of this Gary Johnson, we're half Republican, half Democrat. No, that shit's fucking gone. The Libertarian Party's getting back to its roots. The Mises Caucus is going to take over, and that I'm excited about. I'm excited to watch and see what they do with that. And as soon as I have information, I'll put it out. But one thing about censorship is I don't know how this works on the Facebook level. Maybe you can ask your inside man. But you and I were connected on Facebook. We were connected for months. And then all of a sudden you're gone. When I wanted to talk to you the other day, I had to seek you out and say, well, I hadn't even thought about it, but where the hell did James go? So, I dig through you on my friends list. You're not on there. So I have to seek you out. So do you think maybe they're disconnecting people that they don't?
Yeah, no, famously. On Twitter, there was a pastor who just tweeted something about God ordained Trump to be president, and he had over 12,000 followers, and they took him down to zero. I had at one point I had over 16,000 followers on my private Facebook account, and then that Facebook account was taken down. It was axed, and then I got this Facebook account that I had up. I had you as a friend, and I'm seeing that as I reach 5,000, like I did before, it keeps negating. And it always happens when it says that restrictions have been added to your account and stuff like that. So I think that when they add the restrictions is when they really start censoring your account. They actually put somebody. Well, what my contact said is they actually put somebody on your account or a team on different accounts that fit the same filter, either radical ideology, hate speech, aggressive language, stuff like that. And they watch your account. They monitor what they say. They turn the algorithms against you. So literally, my followers have to share everything that I post. Otherwise, it's not going to pop up in your newsfeed. For instance, if you posted a picture of your dog, I probably would see it in your newsfeed. But if I post something saying Black conservatives are here and they're ready to talk, you're not going to see it in your newsfeed unless one of my mutual friends shares it. And it gets shared again, and then maybe you'll see it because it started to go viral.
I see it.
Or our immediate, local area. Does that
I
make
have
sense?
to see it around the bout. Or I have to see it from someone else's direction.
Secondhand.
Oh shit. Well, I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know what the answer to all this is. But I like what I think any movement's the right movement, and I like that you're trying to get into the schools. I think that's extremely important. We gotta get these kids seeing the world in a better way.
What we really need to do is get the parents of these kids to stop paying their phone bills, to stop cooking them their dinners and their breakfasts, and driving them to schools. Let the kids be adults on their own. Stop pandering to them so that they see the reality of life, that resources aren't just provided and dropped on their lap. We have to go out there and earn these resources. And when you're providing obstacles to earning these resources by allowing the government to get in our way, you're hindering yourselves. And until they realize how difficult it is to acquire these resources, to pay for these phones, to provide these cars and pay for the insurance, until they realize the hardships of reality, I really don't think they're going to get off this candy bus.
You're probably right.
They're not. And, there's a growing, kind of movement in high schools and middle schools. I know a lot about this, is that they're teaching critical race theory. They're doing it in Utah at Rose Park Elementary School. They're teaching critical race theory to kids that are still trying to figure out how to read the first chapter of Harry Potter, sounding out words, and they're teaching them critical race theory. They're teaching them white guilt. They're indoctrinating our kids before they've had time to develop who they are. So that's the problem, is that if you go in and you teach them about the history of their country, that's a lot different. But when you start attacking white kids because they're white, and you need to teach them that they have to support a political party because this political party supports the disadvantaged group of people, you're going to find a lot of indoctrination. This year, being so involved with Lives Matter, I didn't really see, unless weird and they had mental issues, I didn't really see anybody that was really over the age of 24.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh.
At these rallies, there were all college kids. There was nobody there except for Lex Scott. She's 50 years old, been doing this for 4 years, hasn't accomplished a single thing for anything that she set out to do. She's the only one that's over the age of 24 that's out there, but she's absolutely, again, as I said, mental issues. She's absolutely insane. So, that's what we're seeing, that the next time a black man gets shot on national television and CNN thinks it, and the Democratic Party wants to insert control and dominance and fear over the black community again, you're going to see a larger movement coming out of these colleges. You're going to see conservatives and Republicans literally being assaulted at greater proportions than they were this time. You're going to see another mass deletion of conservative voices from social media. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened the second year of Biden's presidency, because he has a history of, kind of kicking the black community in the ass with his the crime bill that he had.
Oh yeah.
Calling us predators, monsters, saying that he didn't want his kids living in a racial jungle. I would not be surprised if another black man was killed on TV, so Joe Biden could come out as a black community savior and erase his white guilt. So, I'm just saying, it's gonna get real, and it's gonna get real really fast. I'm both excited and kind of scared to what happens in the next couple of months, not even years. In the next couple of months, I believe the biggest, most significant changes in our country are going to happen in the next couple of months in Biden's first 100 days. So, we'll see.
The show must go on.
How are your folks doing with the dichotomy of their two boys?
The what?
How are your parents doing with the dichotomy of their two boys?
The two boys. So my dad, John Sullivan, he was a lieutenant colonel in the military. My mom was an army wife. They're both devout Mormons. They taught us conservative values, not only politically, but just, respect to your country, respect to the troops, respect for officers, stuff like that. Growing up, I have 3 brothers in total. John coming out and doing this past summer was a shock to my family. It wasn't something that any of us saw coming. He was a very quiet kid, but he was making over $200,000 a year at this sales company selling freight. He was building a house at 24, and he bought a Mercedes out in cash, like a nice Mercedes out in cash, and he was doing amazing things with his life. And he came out and he said that capitalism was a cancer to black society, when capitalism literally gave him the Mercedes and the house that he was building in Sandy. And when that happened, we just kind of looked at it, and we sat back for a couple months, and the shooting happened, and that's when I made the decision to come out against it. My dad and my mom, they just kind of play the waiting game, which is not something you can play when your son has been indoctrinated by a radical socialist ideology. You have to go out and you have to confront it. So when I came out, my parents were 110% against everything that I was doing. They never attended a single rally that I co-organized or I participated at. They've only just started now showing their support, because we have a documentary crew that came out to capture our story. They're working with an Academy Award-winning production company, and they wanted to come out and do a documentary on how the media can literally divide families in the way that they did the John, because John was the conservative, and then he was turned radical left in the space of 2 months. So my parents, again, they just kind of played the waiting game. I know that my mom and my dad, they continue to try to create a relationship with John. They'll go months without talking, and they'll talk again, but they're really just praying, and they're hoping that John will realize that everything that he has in his life was literally given to him by God, capitalism, and the Constitution of our country. That he's not this disadvantaged black kid. He literally sounds like me, but he's going up there screaming power to the people, like he's like a Southern Baptist pastor. He's so confused in who he is that my parents are kind of looking at him and are just saying we're just going to wait and see how this turns out. But I went out and I completely combated him with a bunch of other strong conservative leaders. I worked with some moderate members of Black Lives Matter to kick him out of his platform, kind of remove him from the community. Antifa doesn't even want him anymore because of the work that we've done. Across the nation, they turned against him in D.C. Recently. They posted to Patriot pages where his hotel was. And Patriots, there was 50, 60 Patriots outside his hotel waiting for him to come out to jump him. So because Antifa released his location. So
does it seem
we're
like
just kind of waiting for John to moderate. But I for me right now, the only way I'm seeing him having a way out is going to jail. To be completely honest, he won't stop. He won't listen to anybody. We've had some very big political figures reach out to John and tell him, black political figures. I'm not going to mention their names. I mentioned them earlier in this podcast, but reach out to John and try to change him, try to mentor him. People who have millions of followers have reached out to John to try to mentor him, and he puts the middle finger up in their faces. He's so indoctrinated that he's devoid of logic. And when that happens, I'm going to continue to go out and expose and to combat him and to make sure that he doesn't have the power that he had over the summer. But again, it's just a waiting game. He has to have that moment of enlightenment where he realizes that what he believes, or a lot of what he believes, goes against who he is as a human being.
You said he was involved or present for 2 shootings now. Do you think I don't know, you may not want to answer this, but do you think that he is somehow a part of that, either inciting it or lining it up to happen?
Yeah, 110%. The Provo rally, he had people marching the street illegally. He lied to them and told them that he had a permit. He encouraged 2 gunmen allegedly to hold up cars and said that it's legal for you to do this. They're not supposed to move. Caught on video saying that. And then one of the gunmen fired into the car that started to move because he was told that it was legal. He was seen with the guy with the gun still smoking, patting him on the back. He was hyperventilating and freaking out because he just shot somebody. And John was seen smiling with this guy. And then at the Capitol, there's several videos of John literally pushing this girl up there. He was wearing a MAGA hat. She thought that he was a Trump supporter, and he was literally pushing this girl up there to take the brunt of everything. He didn't want to be seen smashing the window, but we have videos of him using a riot shield to smash the windows. So like, and then he told her in his stream to go first, and then she was shot. So in both instances, he incited the riot, videotaped it, got views, pushed her into this building. She got shot. He literally videotaped her dying on his phone. He didn't go down to help her. He didn't do anything. He just sat there with his phone in the cradle and videotaped her like dying. And then he went immediately to CNN and he said, "Hey, I have a videotape of this girl dying." And he got on to Anderson Cooper. So he's doing it for views. He instigates violence. He steps back and videotapes it. So he goes viral. He has 3 viral videos. The one of him at the Capitol where he's saying he wants to rip Trump out of office. He has over 118 million views. And then this one is like going up to like, 200-300. The last time I saw it was like 200-something million views of this girl getting shot and bleeding out on the floor. So, no, I think John has lost his moral compass completely. I think he's devoid of logic. I think that, and I've known from different people that have been in his circle that he's kicked out, that he's really, 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 really addicted to Adderall. So I think that maybe his lack of empathy could be attributed to that. But again, he's done too much for me to actually go in and legitimately care about the causes of what he's doing. I really, really just want him to either be put on house arrest or go to prison, because it's not something that can be saved.
Wow, that's quite the.
I hope that he. I hope that. I hope that whatever happens, he finds some kind of respite from. That's a bad path when you lose empathy, where you're okay with people dying, either for your popularity or. And let's face it, when a radical movement's throwing you out, you need to take pause in what's going on with you.
Yeah, he's too radical for them.
I mean,
so,
if the Bolsheviks were to tell you, "All right, buddy, you need to calm down," you need to take a minute and say, "All right."
Look in the mirror.
Yeah. John thinks that maybe if he I don't know, maybe he thinks he's going to lead the next revolution.
He thinks he's a superhero or something.
He doesn't know. So I actually, with a documentary, by the way, everybody thinks because I was in this documentary with John that we're working together. There's a huge conspiracy theory out there saying that we started everything to get fame. I'm a single dad of 2 kids. I came out because my brother was absolutely crazy, and I grew into a leader, and I didn't anticipate that. I just wanted to stop him from destroying the family name. But with John becoming leader of the movement, I was able to sit in a room with him for an hour in New York at a country club at an interview for the documentary. And it was the first time that we had talked in like 6 months, face to face.
Hold on. I want to play with the idea that you guys did this together. So
go ahead.
Me and Dave are going to role play you. All right, Dave.
Who do I get to be?
This is how we're going to do it. Okay. Or we can flip a coin, maybe.
Good cop, bad cop kind of situation.
Yeah, heads I become the conservative. Tails I become the Antifa member. Is that how they're thinking you guys did it? You guys sat in a room and said, yeah.
And we worked with like Casey Robertson, the leader of UCA. Different cops and officers were involved.
Now, Casey's the guy coming on tomorrow, right?
Together
Casey's coming on
to get
tomorrow.
A documentary. But I worked with the FBI and the police department, several police departments, to indict John of his charges that he got in Provo. So and I did that again when he went to the Capitol. I literally was sending in everything I was getting to the FBI. I was on the phone with the FBI, the Metropolitan Police, trying to get my brother, taken off the streets.
How come nothing happened
working together?
How come nothing happened in Provo? How come nothing's coming of this? How come the FBI is releasing him and letting him go?
That's everybody's question. That's my question. If I went and I told a gunman to shoot into a car, they would restrict my travel. John he's been open carrying for like since he did that on. They would take away my guns. I honestly do not know. There's a theory that he's working with the FBI.
Like this sounds like COINTELPRO.
Go ahead.
This sounds like COINTELPRO to me. This sounds exactly like what they did in the 60s.
It doesn't make sense that he's allowed to run rampant. Like there's not a single person that knows him. It's like, why is this kid allowed in the streets? Like, it wasn't only the Provo riot thing. He did Cottonwood. He did a bunch of other places where he incited violence. People got hurt, and he stood back and watched it on a camera, and then acted like the victim. And he's been to Kenosha, to California, to Portland, any radical city that you can think of that had the most violence during Black Lives Matter. He was there, and he wasn't stopped. I know for a fact that when he was in Portland, there was 22 Antifa members that were surrounding him or were friends with him. They all got arrested and charged with something, and it was always people that he was close to. So like he started using like encrypted messaging services and stuff like that. But I really do think that that's one of the main reasons, despite what I was doing, why Antifa pushed against him, because whoever he was around seemed to get arrested.
So
and he wasn't ratting them out; they just got arrested. So I honestly don't know. That's up to speculation. But yeah, John, I had the opportunity of sitting in a room with him with a documentary after not talking to him for 6 months, and I can send you the audio of it. I can't send you the video because of the disclosure I signed, but it's literally me. I let him talk for about 20 minutes. They told me to let him talk for 5, but I wanted to hear what was in his mind and to ask him what he believed in. And for 20 minutes, he went from topic to topic to topic to topic. And I had to ask him, what do you believe in? What do you believe in? And he couldn't answer the question. So I'm like, do you believe in socialism? And he's like, no, I believe in decentralized government. And I'm like, well, that's socialism. And, it was going back and forth to the point where I got so frustrated that I started raising my voice because he was devoid of logic. He didn't understand what he was standing for. And I asked him about the Black community, the thing that he was screaming about. And I said, well, what bills are you supporting? I named a couple. He didn't know what I was talking about. And these were very famous bills that were being passed by Republicans like Tim Scott. And, he didn't know. So, like, at the end of that interview, the only thing that I got out of him was the most sociopathic statement that I've ever heard, is when the interviewer asked him, if James was being attacked by Antifa and was stabbed and you had a phone and you could call 911, what would you do? And he said, I would step on his face and let him bleed out. He had no emotion in his face, completely devoid, and he smiled. And, she asked me the same question. And I said, I would call 911. I would sit next to him. I would make sure he got to the hospital, and I would leave. He doesn't have emotion. He does not care what happens to other people. And that shows sociopathic tendencies. And it's scary. I honestly would not doubt if another riot broke out, he flies out to be there, that he would be killed. Because he's not able to feel what other people are feeling. It's incredible.
Did he start using drugs before he had this slip with reality? Before, like when he was in the job and making all the money, did he start using drugs or anything? Do you think maybe there was an aided slip, a chemically aided slip there?
Maybe it's the only thing that would make sense.
Honestly, that is. I don't know. Maybe something else could have happened.
I mean, I've seen other conservatives turn completely radically left. I don't know if you know anything about MK Ultra or anything like that. Like
I do. I have a different show where we talk about that all the time.
Yeah, how the media manipulates and brainwashes entire populations of people, or when they focus in on certain communities, like the Black community. They have convinced the Black community that they cannot rise without their government. Literally.
Yeah. Not just that they can't rise, that they can't survive. Not just the Black community. They've taught inner cities. They've taken they've taken all the inner cities and convinced them that you need government services to function.
Exactly. And this is coming out of an era where black people were literally rising up against the government. They were rising up against like Jim Crow and segregation laws.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a period of absolute like just progression after the Civil Rights Act. And then somehow from that point to now, the black people are now back in this oppressive state that, you know, the government is going to tell me what I can and cannot do because they're taking care of me. I just have to make sure I stay within my lane. Just like I have to make sure that I don't go into the whites only bathroom, the whites only theater. Like, stay in my lane, government will take care of me, I'll be fine. So it's the same thing. It's just without the white hoods.
Yeah, it's come full circle. I mean, right now they're trying to set up segregated areas in colleges.
Yeah,
they're doing it in the opposite direction. They're saying, no, this is blacks only. You know, trying to say you're the special group, but that's segregation again.
And it started with safe places.
It's absolute brainwashing. And that's what I think happened to John. I think Adderall and his abuse of it kind of attributed to that. But, you know, I've seen it all over the different cities that I've been, the different people I've talked to, the different protests that I've sat in on and, like, listened. These people genuinely believe that, you know, conservatives are going out and killing them and cops are killing them at genocidal levels, where they're not looking at like the 200 to 300 people that get shot every weekend in Chicago. You know, they say that's not a problem. It's not a problem. But the 0.02% of our community that gets shot by cops, that's the biggest problem in the nation. And it's devoid of logic. And it's because the government the Democratic Party and the media are telling them that's their biggest problem. And the thing is that the Democrats, as you know, don't really care about black people. They went from saying that they wanted to fund the police that now they want to give the police a lot more funding to control these areas.
Not just that, but they want to nationalize the police. So the police are no longer accountable to your city or your unincorporated area, that your police are a national police. They'll be a branch of
that's a trend
the general
in the Democratic
government.
Party.
Yeah, which is the equivalent to like Gestapo. So if you don't believe in what, like, with the current party in power, that those police officers will then be, you know, not only protecting the rights of the state, but also enforcing the laws and the policies of the federal government.
No, here's the
which
biggest.
Would disproportionately affect the black community.
Here's the biggest part.
So, it doesn't make sense.
What it is
really
is you will have a standing army, a standing federal army in every city, in every county, in every town across this nation. You will have a standing federal army. They'll start washing out guys that aren't accountable to them, that don't believe in them. You'll start seeing police officers pop into your local town that aren't from your state or didn't apply for the job. They got moved there by Washington.
Why not just ask the Chinese government for assistance to help stabilize the country?
It's almost like the damn Democrats are running their playbook. Shit, we're going to have a social credit. Well, we already have it. That's what our Facebook and Twitter is. It's our social credit score.
Exactly. No, it's absolutely insane, and it's stuff that's happening. And you know, it's hard to say it, but it's absolutely amazing of how the Democrats have played their cards. How the Democrats, or the radical left, has been able to, during one of the most conservative, progressive times in our history, they have been able, at the end of that, to demonize all, like, 78 million people, demonize them, label them all as radicals, and turn public opinion towards or against them. Our politicians are no longer supporting the Patriot movement. They're calling it radical. We're literally told not to show up to our state capitals because it's a trap. Like, conservatives are starting to be pressured back into their holes because now they're afraid, just like we're afraid during the Obama era, they're afraid of the repercussions of getting federal charges. They're afraid of, you know, getting canceled on Facebook, losing, like, their friends, stuff like that. And it's happening in a more aggressive way this time. Like, literally, if you show up to a state capitol with a gun, which you're legally allowed to do, you could be arrested for like treasonous acts or federal charges. Like nobody's showing up to these state capitals like they were supposed to. The largest armed protests in America, they're not doing it now because they're told that they're going to be arrested if they practice their second First Amendment right because of what happened at the Capitol. It's for the next couple of years, it's all going to come back to the Capitol. They're going to continue to use that as a way to demonize patriotic Americans. And it's sad.
This reminds me of I'm a little older than both of you. Dave might remember this, but I remember the late 80s and early 90s what the far right started doing then, and I've been warning about this on this show. And you had the far right movement started to collapse in and close in. You had Elohim City. They were bank robbers. They would set up ambushes for sheriffs and highway patrols in the areas, and you had some far right movements that were just disassociated, and that's your Ruby Ridge guys. They just disassociated from the nation, moved up by Coeur d'Alene out in the woods, and just wanted to live by themselves. A lot of ex-military, Green Berets were awful common in those groups. I mean, they saw what the government was and withdrew and kind of wanted to set up, and they were essentially, I wouldn't call them white nationalists. They were white segregationists. And then you had Elohim City was another militant movement, which was honestly the scarier one because they were out doing actions. And they culminated in the Oklahoma City bombing. I mean, that's where Timothy McVeigh came from. He was a member of the group there in Elohim City. But you also had Waco got caught up in that mix because the left, which I consider the Bushes to be of the left. I mean, let's look at all their actions. They may have said they were Republican, but they didn't act like it ever in any instance.
No, they didn't.
But they went on an assault. Well, it was the ATF went on an assault because they were due to have their funding cut, so they needed to throw some numbers up on the board because the coach didn't like what they were doing. And, of course, they fucked that up, and then, Big Brother FBI had to come in and, murder, what was it, I don't know, something like 38 kids just because, the FBI is, a hammer that shouldn't be used in that operation. But, no, I seriously, I think there's a pretty good evidence just on us talking, and your brother's a known individual.
Yeah.
I know that he took that video of that lady dying. His is the video that I watched where he was kind of on a stairwell, kind of above and looking sideways and down at her. And I have questions. First of all, the guy who shot her from the inside, what did he have going on? What the fuck was that? Because he just peeked around the corner, shot her, and peeked back. And then they had police officers that were right behind them on the outside, right behind that girl.
The Capitol.
So you have police officers on the other side, and he fires a shot. He fires a shot where the backstop could possibly be another police officer. Was that guy who shot her a police officer? What was his involvement?
So it all comes back to the setup. A death in the Capitol at an event that Trump incited and organized leads to the narrative that the Patriot movement has radicalized, that to the point that an officer had to fire at a woman who broke into the Capitol.
Yeah,
Notice that they didn't mention that my brother was right next to them. In any of the reports, they did not mention that John Sullivan, known Antifa leader, was next to this woman that got shot.
Well, I appreciate KUTV put that on their headline news story. I appreciate that at least our local news.
And a couple of other people, and I gave them the information they needed.
But I mean, the FBI, honestly, they should have known. Okay, this kid's been involved in some dog shit all over the nation. It's time to wrap him up and close this, or he's one of their guys.
And what is the FBI trying to accomplish? I mean, man, talk about counterproductive from my perspective. Unless they belong to somebody else other than the United States, what is the FBI supposed to accomplish by avoiding the evidence he's presenting to them?
I'm sure they belong.
Allowing this kid to just roam free around the country and cause all this rubbish.
I'm sure that they belong to the United States that was built under Bush and Obama. Those United States aren't United States that we would traditionally recognize or want to visualize, Well, we can go back, Clinton. We can go back to Daddy Bush running the show under Reagan. The same FBI that allowed CIA to funnel drugs into our nation.
Yeah.
We lost this. We lost this nation and this government. Well, shit. I mean, there was a pretty famous president that gave a whole speech about it some 80 years ago. Well, I should say 70 years ago.
And it makes you wonder how involved Facebook, Amazon, and Google are with our government. Because
who do you think funded them?
I'm sure. How many contracts do they hold with our government anyway?
Who do you think funded their startup? Who do you think funded their rocket and rise? How do you think that they got their seed money to explode onto the market? Now, Amazon may be a little different. I think he's bought out after the fact.
We sound like conspiracy theorists again.
I am a conspiracy theorist.
That's okay, guys. I do have to go.
Yeah,
but I will
yeah.
Say, I will say that, the answer that a lot of Americans are looking for because they're let down, there was no storm or trust the plan, is just Trump leaving the office. It is going to mean a lot of different changes, a change in the political climate of our country. But we are still 78 million plus strong. And as long as we keep our voices loud, as long as we stay peaceful and we keep it to local government and we challenge everything that deserves to be challenged and we don't go back to being silent, it's not going to be like it was with Obama's presidency where the radical left controlled the entire narrative or social acceptance for the country. If we continue to be loud, that won't happen. It won't be able to happen. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a very long road. It's 4 years. So, but we have to continue to do that, and we have to continue this momentum that we have as brothers and sisters, as patriots, and going forward. So that's all I can really say. It's not really a message of hope. It's continuing the call to action that Trump gave at the beginning of his 4 years. So, knowing that Biden's going to be president, it's obviously something that, every patriot is going to be bummed about. But me personally, I almost have an absolute calm because I know what I want to do, and I know that I can accomplish that with or without our amazing president, Donald J. Trump, in office. So, and a lot of patriots, they have to start defining themselves as patriots, one who vigorously supports their country and defends their country against domestic and foreign threats. They have to know that they're patriots for their country, not patriots for Donald Trump. And the second they start realizing that, and they start accepting the real American values, and everything that Trump preached were patriotic American values, is when they can truly become leaders in their own community and kind of guarantee the continuation of the amazing union that we have in this country.
Yeah.
So,
well, thanks for joining us, James. Thank you very much. Anytime you have anything you need to put out, please reach out.
We're here.
All right,
And
well,
if you notice that we're deleted from you again, just shoot us a message. Another question before you go. I have 2 questions. Kind of a bet. How long do you think before Kamala trips Biden and becomes president? Like trips him down the stairs or lets him play with his dog outside the shower?
within the first 100 days. I
First
do
100
think within
days?
the first 100 days.
Yeah.
I think that the Republicans are going to start the call that he's not mentally able to handle the duties of his office.
Oh, you
And the
think they're
Democrats
going to
are
go
gonna follow it.
25th on him, huh?
What?
You think they're going to go with the 25th on him?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
I would go I think any logical person would go the 25th on Biden. Like,
Yeah. Hey.
he can't form rational sentences. He doesn't know where he is half the time. I'm not even ragging on him. It's just looking at him as a person. Not
Do you
even
think
as a
they've
political
hired
figure.
a
It's just like,
Do you think
What?
they've hired a special page to change his diapers, or if his wife comes and does it?
I don't know. I don't know how far his deterioration is, but he's not somebody that should be leading our country.
Yeah.
I do see Kamala stepping in. I honestly, being completely honest with you, I would be surprised if Biden made it past the first 3 years, like, alive. Like, if he doesn't die, like, he just looks that unstable health wise.
Yeah, he's slipping knee deep into dementia. The next
Okay.
the next thought is
That's true.
the good outcome of this is this will this is my thoughts. I believe this will it will invigorate the right wing or conservatives or traditionalists or even the people I'm most aligned with, kind of the more right wing libertarians or anarcho-capitalists, to get more involved and get more aggressive in their efforts. And I don't mean aggressive physically, but I mean aggressive in gaining knowledge, figuring out paths, finding different equipment. And I think that's a good thing. We need that to happen. And I hope that the next time that a Republican gets in office, we don't sit on our heels again. Because at the end of Obama, the right wing started getting busy. And then Trump got in and they sat on their heels. And we can't. We've got to pay attention. And you've got to pay attention to your state. And
Exactly.
a call out I want to make on every show, you got to shop local. You've got to shop local. You've got to keep that money. Don't give it to Amazon when you can avoid it. Don't give it to Walmart when you can avoid it. Shop local.
I don't know if I have anything optimistic to say like that. So,
Okay,
but
guys. I
forward
do gotta
we
go.
move.
All right, James.
Yeah, I'll keep in contact.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. Hey, anytime. Seriously, this is an
Great
open
show.
door for you. Open door anytime.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Good luck.
Yes. Be safe, man. Have a good night. And
Do the right thing.
yeah, I hope it all works out, man.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Have a nice night.
You
Night.
too.